So it's called Dr. Copper, or the metal that has a PhD in economics. What is the hype about this metal that everybody now running to it to want to invest, and people are putting so much money in copper? What is the hype about it? Well, let's explore that subject because copper might just be a commodity to invest in this year in 2024 going forward. And it comes as no surprise because copper has uncanny ability to diagnose the health of the broader economy. What are we saying here? Well, copper, as you might know, it has this multitude of industrial applications from your electric wiring to plumbing, to roofing, and industrial machinery. And now, obviously, with the emergence of AI, your EVs, the use of copper is becoming even more and more. And so, because copper is so integral to these industries, its demand is closely tied with the health of the economy. When economies are growing, the demand for copper obviously rises. But the same thing happens when the economy is going down, the demand for copper as well goes down. But the only good thing is that the price of copper does not fluctuate that much. So the volatility in terms of price of copper is not that much. And that's one thing that makes it a good commodity to invest in, because you don't want to invest into something that, or whose price that you don't know what it's going to be the following hour or the following day or the next week. So there's definitely that correlation between demand for copper and the health of the economy. And that's the correlation that gives us a heads up on where the country's economy is headed. So if the country's economy is doing well, the price of copper keeps going high up. One person that is very passionate about copper and is invested quite lots and lots of money into it is Stanley Druckenmiller. This guy is wealthy, but surprisingly, he took out almost 70% of his money, his wealth, into copper. That makes it so special, obviously. And that's what we want to explore today. What is it that is so special about this commodity that would make somebody to take all his fortune and invest it into copper? Check what this guy had to say. He was being interviewed on CNBC as to why he had to invest so much money into copper. Listen to this.
But one would think coming out of it, there are going to be some great commodities. Copper is in the tightest position, well, frankly, I've ever even studied. I'm actually afraid to have a meaningful position in it at this point as we approach the hard landing, only because I'm not an idiot and I know what would happen to the cyclical factors as a hard landing starts. But coming out of it, given the move toward EVs, given the usefulness of it in infrastructure spending, which I think a lot of government policies will try and encourage on their way out, it's hard to believe copper won't be a huge beneficiary. The question is, when am I supposed to buy it and how big is the exposure? And a lot of how big I would get a position like that, again, will be policymakers' response if we even get a hard landing. This isn't a foregone conclusion. As I said earlier, this is not an easy place to forecast.
So there you have it. The man has shifted his focus to copper after exiting the majority of his Nvidia position. 72% of all the stock that he had in Nvidia, he put it into copper. This move, many people have said, has significant implications on the future of investing, and that's making more people to rush to invest as much money as they can into copper. And it's not like Nvidia stock was not doing well. This man made lots of money into this product. We know Nvidia stock engages in computer graphics, your processors, your chipsets, and many other multimedia softwares. And obviously, with the emergence of AI, you cannot obviously say that it was a bad investment. AI is booming now, and it paid him lots and lots of money. Back in 2019, from the time that this guy invested in Nvidia stock, I think the price was going around about $150. And now we're looking at it to be somewhere around $900. So he made quite a fortune out of that. But he took out all that and invested into copper. That can tell you something already, that there must be something special that is focusing in his mind. So, like he says in the interview, copper's demand is said to skyrocket, and that's obviously driven by so many factors. One of them mentioned there is a rapid expansion of data centers of AI. The mention of Microsoft 500 million data centers that they're planning to build in Chicago. That alone is going to require about 2,000 tons of copper. And it's not just anywhere, there's further plans to build about 50 to 100 data centers every year. So you can imagine how much copper that's going to require. So the demand is quite unprecedented. You look at other big tech companies like Oracle, Amazon, Meta, and Google, they're all ramping up their data center constructions. And that's adding to the demand for copper every year, every day. One commodity company here says that it's going to add 1 million tons of copper demand by 2030. You can think of that. It's crazy, right? But it doesn't stop just there. The energy transition, including your EVs, that's the talk of the world now. People are now talking about moving from your ordinary cars to using electrical vehicles. There's so much talk about renewables now. Every country is now talking about transitioning to renewables. So think about how much copper that is going to need. However, with every good thing, obviously, there's so much challenges. Copper is not excluded from this. It actually faces a lot of market challenges. Mining disruptions and complications from the Russian sanctions are also straining supply. So much as there's so much demand for copper in the coming years, there's a big question to say, are those industries really going to cope with the supply? Is supply going to meet the demand? So the future is a little bit skeptical. We don't know what's going to happen. So in summary, what Stanley is saying here is that there's massive investment opportunity in Dr. Copper, in this precious metal, with obviously the AI, energy transition. But considering the challenges that lie ahead, which obviously we cannot really say that they outweigh the opportunities that this metal has. Because if you look at the trends, back in September 2019, copper prices fell to their lowest level. That was obviously driven by the concerns for Chinese economy, which is the biggest consumer of copper, because I think China consumes about half, they say, of the world's copper. And we can all agree to it because there's so many industries that are that we can find in China out there. The other factor could also be attributed to the tensions. You know, the tension that is ongoing. Nobody knows when that tension will finish. The tension between USA and China, that also contributed to the drop in the price of copper. But despite all those challenges, the copper price still bounced back within the same year. And so that's making most of the investors to think like, even if the prices, even if there could be challenges out there, that would make the copper prices to drop in the near future. They still feel that because of so much demand for it, the price can still bounce back. So looking ahead, most of the economists are actually focusing that copper prices is going to average around 6,200 to around about 7,000 per metric ton in the fourth quarter of this very year that we're in, of 2024. And that indicates that the global recession is not likely to happen. And that indicates that the global recession is not likely. In fact, trading patterns, if you look at your major exchanges like your Chicago Metal Exchange and the London Metal Exchange, they actually show that funds are turning more and more bullish when it comes to copper. Yeah, so what do you think? Is copper the next big thing? Is it something you want to invest your money in? I would say go for it, because most of these economists are saying yes, they're seeing brighter things ahead. And if you definitely read the world situation, the environmental factors, it's actually driving toward that. It won't be a bad idea to try that out. So you can see the projections really vary. I mean, just like everything in economics, you can't be certain, you can't be 100% sure of what the future holds for this commodity. But most of the research that is being done looking at the future outlook, most economists are looking at the positive side. In fact, the worst case scenario, most people are saying the price might come to about 5,000, and then others are looking at the highest price of about 7,000, which is still not bad. And in fact, despite that spread, many are still arguing when they look at the demand outlook. They are saying that copper prices could actually be trading even higher. So you're looking at your 8,000, 9,000, but obviously they don't want to be too optimistic or, too excited about the prices, but only the future can tell. So there's two things that we're looking at. On the supply side, obviously there's a few concerns. There's a lot of uncertainties, political unrest that is happening in Latin America, where about 1/3 of the world's copper comes from there. But there's a lot of political changes or disruptions that are happening on that side. For example, in Chile, which is the largest producer of copper, protests have slowed down mining operations there. And like we said earlier, China, US war, economic war, it's still going to continue for a long time. So when we're looking at the supply side, that is a huge issue. And so because of those disruptions that are happening in the world's biggest suppliers of copper, sometimes it so happens that there's a reduced rate of supply to wherever copper is needed. And so we don't know how political tensions or any other tensions in those big producers is going to affect the supply. So let's see how things go. Check out Dr. Copper. Give it a little bit of money and see how it goes. See you in the next video, guys.